Reconfiguring your reality.
Hi, this is Patrick Henningsen. Thank you for joining us this week on the 21st Century Wire. We've got an interesting story which is breaking this week. In Los Angeles, Christopher Dorner, the alleged LAPD cop killer, was holed up in Big Bear Mountain last night. And Chris Dorner, unbeknownst to many people, has made contact with the alternative media. So we're joined today by Chris Kitze, founder of beforeitsnews.com. And we're going to go straight into it. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Patrick. Great to be here.
Now, Chris, tell us a little bit about how this came into your lap. And obviously, people have been following the story of Chris Dorner. They're still going through the burnt remnants of a burnt cabin and trying to locate the body. But how did this come into your lap this week?
Well, kind of an interesting story. One of our editors, who actually is from Ireland, sent me a message that said, hey, I think I found the Facebook page for Christopher Dorner. And so I immediately went there and I said, well, excuse me, do you think this thing is real? And he's pretty experienced at this. And he said, yeah, I think this thing looks legitimate. So I looked around and then I just hit the, hey, I want to be your friend button. And literally within about 15 minutes, he responded. So, it was quite shocking because I think this is one of the first times where there's been a story of this kind of national import and international import that has been, interactive with the social media.
Explain to us, the headline you ran on Before It's News said, Chris Dorner claims he's been framed. He didn't kill anybody. How did this flesh out in the sort of messages you had with him, or did you have any contact with him via messaging?
We didn't actually have any chat messaging back and forth, but there were things that were posted interactively, and I knew that he was following what we were doing because I would pose a question on his timeline, and then he would turn around and like it. I posted it on our website. I put a link back up on the timeline, and then he would like that. So, he was interacting with our reporting, which is, I think, quite unique. I mean, I've never seen anything like that before, in this kind of a situation. The interesting thing about it was, when he said he was framed, that it sounded legitimate. And the first thing I thought of, well, is this guy? What kind of person is this? Is this a person who is a truth teller? Is this a person who is just out doing something crazy? What's going on? And, a little bit of research. He and another military person had found a bag containing $8,000 in cash. This is probably a number of years ago. And they had returned it. It belonged to a church. I think it was in Oklahoma. But it was quite interesting when you put that kind of thing in perspective. In fact, I lived there through the Rodney King riots, and that's the first thing that I thought of was, wow, maybe we're going to be in like an O.J. Chase scene or, L.A. riots. I mean, one of those iconic things that can only happen in L.A. because it's such a media center.
Now, how could you verify that this was in fact Chris Dorner's Facebook profile? Did you have discussions with any of your colleagues to try to zero in on the authenticity of that?
Well, the issue is this. It happened so quickly, and, we don't have the resources that a major news organization does. So, one of the things that you would do is you would go and check and say, hey, tell me this fact about yourself that I can verify, that I know, like, what's the name of your pet? Or, it's just like one of those bank questions where how do you authenticate who a person is? And unfortunately, we didn't have any access to those kind of resources. We didn't have access to his family members, so forth and so on. So that was that's obviously one of the things that we don't have here. I mean, we're kind of a ragtag news organization, so we just do the best we can with what we've got. Unfortunately, that would be the next level of verification. And of course, one of the other things is on the internet, anybody can be anybody they say they are, and you're exactly right. That's one of the issues.
And there's another story which appeared on Before It's News, which I wanted to get your comment on. CNN using bits of a fake manifesto. Chris Dorner obviously posted this online manifesto, allegedly, anyway. But they're using a fake manifesto, and CNN's running bits and pieces of that in their news. Can you extrapolate on that?
Well, this is the issue that, and this is one of the problems with the internet, is that, the old saying on the internet was anybody, you don't know if you're talking to a dog on the internet, right? Well, the same thing is true for all this supposed evidence that people have proffered. And the first thing that looked really suspicious when I read that manifesto, it's just like rants and raves, and actually some people who've done some analysis of it, who are professionals in that area, have said that this was actually crafted by a number of people. And so I actually think that manifesto was not real. I think that was a fake. I think that the CNN, the coin with the bullet holes, I don't know if you saw that supposedly was mailed to Anderson Cooper. That did not look real to me. And I mean, well, just consider the source, right? CNN. They'll put up whatever, right? And the fact is that they're controlled by, a group of people who, have a different kind of agenda. Let's just put it that way. So I actually think that there was a lot of fake so-called evidence that was proffered that actually, in the grand scheme of things, I think that that points to Chris Dorner not having done a lot of those things that they claimed he did. So including the murders, he said, I didn't kill anybody. And that sounded, to me, I listen to a lot of people telling me stories, and I say that they're either telling me stories that are true or false, things that they make up in their own imagination or whatever. This sounded true to me. And, but we all knew what the outcome was going to be, because look at the way LAPD handled the situation. They were actively out just gunning for people. I mean, they shot those two Hispanic ladies, 50 bullet holes in the back of a pickup truck. Now, anybody who's lived in LA knows, there's a little bit of that style that goes on there, because it's as much as it's a capital of the world in a sense, it's still very violent there. And I mean, you feel the tension. You drive on the freeways, and you can just feel the tension when you're in a place like that. I live in Northern California, so for me, it's when I go down there, it's like you're part of. You definitely feel part of the food chain when you're driving on the freeway in LA. So that's a little bit of that's to be expected. But I mean, come on, going out and gunning for people like this, and it's not even like they matched the description. The truck didn't match the description. It was a different color, different make and model. I understand people under stress, and I understand. I've got two brother-in-laws who are police officers, and I mean, I definitely understand what police officers go through, getting shot at and so forth. But there are a lot of people down in LA who are on the police force there, either at the higher levels or on the streets, who probably should not be doing civilian policing. The outcome, obviously, we knew what the outcome was going to be. It was going to be Waco. That's where this thing was headed. And the other thing interesting, too, Patrick, I want to mention is that Anonymous got involved as well. And they contacted me through this whole thing. And my first thought was, okay, he's probably on some kind of mobile device, G4 iPad or something like that, that he's just moving around, and he's on this wireless, Wi-Fi type of grid or 4G grid. What happened is he essentially had the help of Anonymous partway through. In fact, probably after about maybe only an hour. And I mean, those guys are really good hackers, so they found out where he was right away. But you have to realize, that when you're online, people think, oh, hey, it's I'm online, I'm anonymous, and that is absolutely not true. So, one of the things I mentioned to Chris Dorner was, I said, hey, you need to be, if you're going to be serious about this thing and you really are running away, you need to get yourself, protect yourself and drop on and off and move around, right? And, he just didn't even respond to that. And then I heard from Anonymous maybe, 20 minutes later. So I think what had happened is they had been obfuscating where his true location was, using proxies and various other means to do that. So it's, cat and mouse a little bit, but I find it hard to believe that they couldn't have tracked down, where he was coming from on some level at some point in time. I mean, part of it was he was coming as a location. He said his location is outside of San Diego, and that could all be fake. That's easy to do. So you just don't know where he really was. Maybe he was holed up in Big Bear the whole time, but it's also possible that he was moving around. You don't know.
One of the things that really struck me when I saw this online manifesto posted early was the parallels to Anders Breivik, the Norwegian mass shooter a couple of years ago, who posted this incredible 200-page manifesto, I believe, that it's doubtful this could have been the work of one person. Would have taken a PhD student quite a long time to cobble together something of that magnitude. And I saw the same sort of feeling here with the Dorner manifesto online. So I'm quite surprised to see the media jump so quickly on that.
Well, I think part of what they're doing is it's part of the programming that's involved with the media. What the way the media operates is they just look for something that they can hold up as evidence, right? So you look at something like Obama's birth certificate, which no one's actually even looked at, right? They hold it up and they just wave it around for a little bit, and it looks real if you're on a video connection, but that's no way to do any kind of real analysis. And they just hope that it's like a magic trick where you're just, look over here while the guy is putting the red ball under the cup over here. That's really what's going on. That's in the movie business, they call it a MacGuffin. That's what Alfred Hitchcock used to call these things, which is a distraction. It's something that distracts the audience from watching the real thing, but the audience knows it's a distraction. So, the question here is how much does the audience actually know about this and are actually playing along because they know they're dupes and rubes, and that's the question. The one in Norway was quite extensive, and the way that whole thing unfolded, it was what's apparent is that there's an active campaign to disarm civilians all over the world. That's really what's happening right now. And I think that's part and parcel of the program with the whole banking infrastructure that's about to undergo a metamorphosis to, and it's like a controlled demolition, really. So what they do is, if you know the building's going to be blown up and coming down, you get out of the building and you figure out how you're going to make money when you rebuild it, right? And that's what happens. They're just planning ahead. And this is just one little cog in the wheel for that whole kind of a program. So, what they're looking for is scare the public, get people, and do something that's so horrific. The school kids, we knew that was coming. That's just like one of those things that's been programmed, and it's always done. All these laws that are passed are always done for the children, right? And that's the message that you get. So when you have this kind of a manifesto, the first thing is, hey, this guy is a crazy person. That's the first thing that you think of. And the sense that I got when I was talking with Chris Dorner online was, this person is rational. This person is not a crazy person. And, I thought for the stress that he was going through, I thought he was holding himself up pretty well. He was very professional. No swearing, no curse words, none of the, kind of rants and raves about things. I thought he was very, very rational. And that was probably the most interesting part of the whole experience when you're talking to someone like that, is once you realize, wow, this really could be the real person that I'm talking to.
Let's also look at this kind of phenomenon here. Early on, I saw a lot of chatter online where people were saying that there's no, this is the public saying there's no way the LAPD are ever going to catch this guy alive. They want him dead and buried before he ever sees the light of day of any courtroom testimony or anything like this. And also just rehash over the incident where they shot up these two women in Los Angeles because on a heightened state of alert. This the preemptive doctrine that's kind of come into play as a result of this crisis. Can you do some analysis on that?
Sure. The first thing that was actually really shocking to me was when I saw when you see the pictures of the bullet holes in the back of these two ladies' truck. They were out delivering newspapers, I think in Torrance or somewhere one of the suburbs of LA. And I understand how police can get jumpy about things. I mean, especially in a situation where there's a lot of violence or potential violence involved. But the problem is that the police are the ones doing a lot of the violence. And the citizenry in LA, I can tell you this, I lived through the Rodney King riots. And the mentality there, especially if you are a minority, they used to have a saying that you got pulled over for a DWB. Now here it's a DWI, in the UK it's called drink driving, but it's a DWI, it's driving while intoxicated, but here it's driving while black. And that's the very common saying that everyone who's minority would say is that, hey, I was driving through Beverly Hills, I'm black, and I was driving through Beverly Hills, and I got pulled over, and it's like they expect it. And the reason is because it's almost a form of a police state right now down in a place like LA. Now, you notice what happened as soon as the veneer of the police state fell apart, the whole place just went to pieces. I mean, the riots, they went on for 3 or 4 days before the National Guard was called in. I remember going to the grocery store. I could walk outside my apartment in Marina Del Rey, and I hear gunshots in Venice, maybe a half a mile to a mile away. It was crazy. And went to the grocery store, and people would be standing in line, 20 people deep. The shelves were completely stripped. This whole event with the psyche of LA is that is burned into LA's psyche. And that was another case of LAPD. What triggered the whole thing there was, of course, Rodney King. And what they did was they showed the edited video, which they didn't show Rodney King beating on the police, which he actually did do. But there's no excuse for violence of any kind like this. And that, I think, is what the frustration boiled over with Rodney King. So I think that is in the back of people's minds. And the police want to keep control, because what happened then is they reached a tipping point. And when the police are afraid for their families, they go home. And then there's no one to patrol the streets. And as soon as the bad guys find out about that, they just go crazy. And so what you ended up with was people looting, burning. They mostly did the things in their own neighborhood. They didn't go to Beverly Hills and burn Beverly Hills down. They stayed in their own neighborhood. So South Central got just completely destroyed. Grocery stores, everything was just burned down. The only things that survived were the Korean grocers, where they stood on the rooftop with their AR-15, and they actually didn't have to fire that many shots. They just brandished the weapons, and people left them alone. They went over to where the pastures were greener. But that backdrop tells you the mentality that the police have and the people have in a place like LA. And what happened there, when you saw this pickup truck of these two innocent ladies, one was 71 years old, the other one I think was in her 30s. Two ladies out delivering newspapers with a blue pickup truck. The pickup truck was originally described, I believe, as charcoal or gray or something like that. And, it's wildly different from what the description was. Different make, different brand of pickup truck even. And just to blast these things, I saw pictures of people doing police stops, having the guy open the back of his truck at gunpoint. This whole thing is pretty, over the top crazy. And, part of it is, I think, that, think about the reason why this is being done. Conditioning. They are conditioning people to accept these kinds of things happening as collateral damage. And if enough of it happens over and over and over, and it doesn't stop, that is the problem. That's what happens with this kind of situation, is that they are conditioning people to accept this kind of thing. They're conditioning people to have people stick hands down their pants at the airport. They're conditioning people to accept spying on their computers. All these different things, which are illegal. That's it. It's just, they're illegal. And, I say illegal, that's, following one set of laws. And, human society right now seems to have fallen down so far that it doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's, Buddha, the original Buddha, Sakyamuni, called it the Dharma ending period, the age of law's end. But what he really meant was it's the end of the law of heaven in people's hearts.
Now, one of the things that was really interesting, I was watching the live CBS feed from Big Bear Mountain last night, our time, and it was really interesting. I saw, as soon as I saw this cabin was on fire, I immediately got a hot flash from Waco, Texas. In other words, no trial, no jury, no evidence, just a complete barbecue. And do you have any information, do you have any speculation as to who actually started that fire? And can you compare this at all to the siege at Waco?
Well, here's something that we do know for a fact. There were police, there are police scanners, and the way it works here in the States is that there are certain frequencies that are used by the police, and then there are people who are hobbyists who actually just listen in just to see what's going on. And there were some reports that we had on our site, and I haven't verified them myself, but there were reports that there were conversations on the police scanner of let's burn this place down. And I think that is what is now the standard MO for these kinds of operations, if you will. I think what happened is, and let's face it, I mean, if you're a cop, you don't want to put your life on the line for some crazy person out there shooting everything. You want to bring this thing to a halt as quickly as you can. The other thing is, maybe there were some hostages inside, but I have a feeling they knew everything that was going on. The other thing that's extremely suspicious is the fact that they had no video footage for a period of time. They said the FAA has put a restriction on overflights of this.
Yeah.
Well, that is like a red letter alert for suspicion for these kinds of things. And what happens is that, you don't know what happened for a half hour. If there's no coverage from above, anything could happen. They could put a dead body inside of the place. They could be doing anything. You don't know. Maybe he was already dead and they just stuck him in there and just burned him up. So you don't know, right? There's no way to know. And whatever evidence there was, you can assume that it's either tampered with, destroyed, or altered in some fashion. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But that is extremely suspicious. I think that the fire was set, although Chris Dorner, there's another interesting fact that has not come to light in a lot of the media, is that he was captured on a video camera buying scuba equipment. And the scuba equipment, when you look at the camera, the photos from the store, they're called pony tanks. They're little tanks that are full of oxygen that people use for free diving. And each tank can contain, somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes worth of oxygen at depth. So, if you're a diver, you know that when you go down to 40 or 80 feet, you consume oxygen a lot faster because it's under a much more pressure. So there's more of what's in the tank gets consumed the deeper you go. So he's not doing that. He's at a high altitude here, so it's going to last even longer. So he had, I think, 3 of those tanks. So he could probably last for, I'd say, a half hour if he was halfway decent with controlling his breath in that kind of an environment. So it's almost like that was expected. And that was kind of a weird foreshadowing of this whole event, the way it unfolded. So I think that investigators that'll be one of the things they'll be looking at. But I have a feeling the official investigation will be he's dead, that's it, over, close the file drawer, that's it. And they'll have an autopsy. It'll be like Andrew Breitbart. Hopefully the coroner won't get killed this time for doing the autopsy. But that's what's going on right now. Is people should be looking at, and I'm talking about this, just people on the internet should be looking as they dig through all these things. They should be looking at these kinds of things, the premeditation, who did what when, and what was the motivation.
Tell us a little bit about, just quickly, tell us a little bit about Before It's News, because I've been following your website more or less since you started, and you guys seem to be hitting quite a pace at the moment. Incredible amount of content has come on your site on a daily basis, and more and more people I talk to are reading your site. Can you just tell us how it's going there at Before It's News?
Yeah, it's going great, Patrick. Thanks very much. And you contribute stories to our site too. Thank you for that. Basically, the idea behind Before It's News, it's an experiment, right? And it's an open and free platform for news. So what we do is we allow almost anybody to post a story about almost anything. So, someone asked me once, well, would you take a story, if Adolf Hitler wrote a story, would you post it on your site? I said, of course, we would, because it would be newsworthy. And, in fact, something like the New York Times would probably post it too. But we have more of an alternative point of view. So while we would accept people who post stories that are more mainstream, they probably wouldn't get a lot of attention, because our audience is a very astute audience. They are accustomed to thinking for themselves and coming up with their own understanding of what the news means to them. So, the critical thinking skills are definitely turned on with our audience. We've grown to the point where now we've got about 4 million unique visitors a month. So it's becoming a fairly good sized site. It's a top 1,000 site. How much bigger can alternative news get? I think it can get a lot bigger, because people are, when they see someone like Anderson Cooper holding the stuff up on TV and it just doesn't sound right, those people start to turn to alternative news. I mean, it's the same process that I turned to alternative news, which was in 2000, I met Aaron Russo. A friend of mine said, oh, you need to meet Aaron. He was begging for money he's running for governor. And I said, well, Aaron, I don't give money to politicians because it encourages them. And then, we started talking about other stuff, and he went into the whole Federal Reserve. And, to me, this is back before he did the film From Freedom to Fascism. And I thought, is this guy a nut job? What is going on here? And then I went and researched everything he said was true about the Federal Reserve. And I was like astounded. And of course, this is before 9/11. So, there's a whole different kind of a tone to things. It was even considered way far fringe when you start talking to someone like Aaron back then. But that's kind of the inspiration for the site. It's just to see, what happened. And we didn't necessarily set out for, wanting to do all these alternative stories. They came to us because it's a natural. We're a natural outlet. The internet is a natural place for these kind of things to exist, because anybody can say almost anything. So that's the background on our site. It's a free and open system. A lot of people are kind of freaked out about it. It's almost like driving when you go to the playa where Burning Man is in northern Nevada. It's one of the flattest places on earth. It's 50 miles of flatness, and it's a hard surface. It's like a hard pan, kind of a silty mud. But you can drive. I mean, this is where they set land speed records. They broke the sound barrier out there near Gerlach, Nevada. That place is what our website is like. There are no lines on the road. You drive where you want to, and it's a sense of freedom that people just don't have and don't understand anymore. And that, I think, is, for some people, it's disconcerting. For other people, it's completely liberating. And that's really what we do with our site. We do a minimum amount of moderation. My goal is to have our users run the website. That's what we want to do. And part of it is out of just sheer laziness that I think, other people can do a better job than I can. But also, it's something that you're going to get stories that filter up, that are going to be points of view and different understandings that you're just not going to find anywhere else. And I think that's what's fun about the site.
I just want to say thank you very much, Chris, for giving us your input on this story, and we'll be keeping an eye as the Chris Dorner drama fleshes out in the mainstream media, and see if we can find any truth lingering left on the alternative media on this subject. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Don't stop.